Now, throughout the years, Mario has encountered many powerful foes, also known as bosses, in his quest of saving the apparently important princess from an oversized lizard. But while these so-called gatekeepers of certain levels or segments can be very powerful and a great challenge, some are even easier than normal enemies. So out of all the bosses seen in the franchise, which ones are too easy to beat for Mario and his hero friends? Well, let's find out. Number 6. Now, personally, I love Super Mario Galaxy. It has almost everything you want from a game, except tons of exploration. And when going through all these weird places and planets, you come across a number of interesting bosses, with one being very disappointing. Not because its design was bad in any way, or the level itself was bad, but actually because the fight was way too easy. I'm talking about the Stinkbug Parents, a mini-boss appearing in the first and second Galaxy game. Surprisingly enough, it's a normal-sized mandibug with a smaller one on its back, so its look is extremely basic to be honest, but not bad. Now, he's first encountered in the Honey Hive Galaxy mission, Trouble on the Tower. To defeat it, you must first squash the offspring on top with a ground pound, and then the parent will become angry. Thanks to this enraged mode, he will approach Mario faster than normal, which can be solved by ground pounding on top of him, rewarding you with a star. Now, as you can imagine, all of this is quite easy to pull off, and you can defeat this so-called boss in less than a minute. And even when you run into it, you don't take any damage at all, only when it charges at you or if you touch its mouth. However, aside from that, you can't take any damage at all as far as I could find, making 2 well-timed ground pounds quite a low bar. Almost anyone can easily pull this off, making this boss super easy. However, what could beat this? Number 5. Now, back in the good old days, all Super Mario games were 2D side-scrollers. For example, Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World. And here we actually took on a lot of different bosses, with some being the hardest ever seen in any 2D title. However, we also took on some of the easiest and most simplistic bosses ever seen in the entire franchise, with one of them being Boom Boom. During the fight, he begins by simply walking left and right towards Mario, occasionally crouching down and showing his large spikes, and then leaping. After being hit, he either starts to charge and jump very high, or flies with his winged arms. Once hitting him again, he will become faster, possibly as a desperate tactic, and after the third hit, he releases a magic ball. Now, some of you might say, "Wily, a lot of these mechanics and attacks sound so new to me. Why is that?" Well, that's because you usually take him out so fast that you won't even experience these tactics, because it's over before he even gets the chance. Most players can jump on him 3 times in a row without a problem, and even people who aren't as experienced can deal with him extremely quickly, making this whole fight disappointing and too easy, I would say, but luckily enough they improved on this in later games. Here he finally got more challenging and you would actually experience all of his attacks for the first time. Number 4. Now, when it comes to the 2D games, which we have talked a lot about so far, there's one group of bosses that always returns. They are a fan favorite of many and have been seen in the world of the Mushroom Kingdom for many years. Yes, I'm of course talking about the Koopalings. However, their fights can be really disappointing to be honest. Just look at their first battles seen in Super Mario Bros. 3. Here they have the exact same strategies: jump, spin in their shells, and fire magic blasts from their magic wands. And most of the time you can quite easily defeat them by being fast at jumping on them. Even in later titles we saw this again and again and again, getting easy wins by jumping on them back to back to back. Only in some fights they gained some new powers, making them harder to defeat, but still speed was a weakness, and we still saw them with their old abilities. And to be honest, even those new attacks that were supposed to make the fights more challenging in some way or form can be easy to counter as well. For example, in New Super Mario Bros. U, during the fight with Morton Koopa Jr., yeah? Where he tries to smack pokey segments at you, you can just run up to him as soon as he gets out of his shell, and you can get him and completely cancel his plans of doing that attack. So really, they remained very easy to beat, even in games like the one I just mentioned, which was made a couple of years ago. So while they are certainly a Super Mario classic, they can be easy to defeat as long as you know what you're doing and are a bit fast with jumping. However, which boss could be even worse? Well, it's actually not a 2D one. Number 3. As some of you might know, Super Mario Sunshine is one of my favorite games in the entire franchise for multiple reasons. The world looks beautiful, and I think FLUDD is fun to mess around with, and Shadow Mario looks really cool. However, there's also a certain type of boss seen in this title that's just way too easy to beat in my opinion. The Goo Piranha plant gatekeepers, which appear in several areas towards the beginning of the game. To beat the thing, you need to spray it with FLUDD until it comes out and then shoot water into its open mouth repeatedly. However, if its mouth is closed, it merely shrugs the attack off, so timing is certainly crucial here. Once defeated, he dissolves into goop, and all of it will disappear, allowing you to continue on your mission. Now, aside from periodically spawning swooping stews, they don't attack, and will actually retreat if you can't defeat them in time. Now, as you can imagine, this boss is ridiculously easy to beat, and actually quite boring. It would have been cool if it shot paint goop at you every now and then, making it harder to hit them with water. But in the end, this was never a thing, and so this fight is finished in less than a minute. All you do is spray and walk away from any enemies that spawn. Aside from that, there's nothing to it, making this the most pointless fight in the entire game for sure. So while I love Super Mario Sunshine a lot, this boss is a flaw. However, there are ones that are even worse. Number 2. Now, while Super Mario Sunshine is certainly a great game, its predecessor is also a great title in many ways. However, it is not perfect. Oh no. And in this title we can also fight a certain boss that might look scary, but is actually extremely easy to defeat. I'm talking about the Whomp King, who you can confront on top of his fortress, where you fight him once. Now his grand master plan of taking you out is by falling face first in an attempt to crush you completely. Now if you manage to dodge this, which isn't too hard to be honest, you can counterattack when he's flat on the ground. You do this by doing a ground pound on his back, and after doing that 3 times he is defeated. Now this is already extremely easy to pull off. Most casual players will beat him with ease every time. However, in the original, there's also a glitch that makes it even more easy to defeat this oversized stone tile. Because by doing a jump and timing a ground pound in midair, the Whomp King's attack goes harmlessly through Mario, and you will end up on his back. And this makes the fight even faster and more effortless as well, because you are in the right position right away. Thanks to this, you can ground pound him again and again, oh yeah, and again, without any issues. And it's a lot faster than a normal way. But even without that, it just comes down to attacking, walking a short distance every now and then attacking again. So really, there's no challenge here, which is a bit sad, because he looks quite intimidating, but in the end, he's just as scary as an actual stone tile. However, who is the easiest out of all of them? Number 1. Hey, little side note, there are more videos on the channel and playlists. I linked them all in the upper right corner, so check them out right after this video. Now for our easiest boss seen in the entire Super Mario series. We are actually going to take a look at one that's also the easiest enemy to beat as well. I'm talking about the Mega Goomba, which is basically a gigantic version of the normal enemy that's beaten by one simple stomp normally, but now it's big, so it's a bit stronger. Now to defeat it, you have to activate a switch, causing 2 platforms to appear, and when standing on the platform, it will elevate in the air. And from here, you can jump on his head with a good old ground pound, and doing this a couple of times is the road to victory. Now, as you can imagine, this fight is very basic and extremely simple, just like the normal Goomba seen in the game. Really, this fight is just a more powerful basic enemy that's harder to hit now, thanks to the fact that he is gigantic. So both his tactics and attacks are basic as hell, as well as the way to take him on. The whole fight doesn't require any effort at all. This makes it ridiculously easy to defeat him, as well as quite boring to fight, to be honest. Certainly not the best boss battle seen in the series. In my opinion, they should have added some more interesting mechanics to the fight, since the platform thing is certainly not enough. However, sadly enough, they never did so, making this one easy as heck. However, this isn't the only video on the channel. We have way more, like our top 5 most useful power-ups in Super Mario Maker 2, or the evolution of videos. So go check those out together with the playlists in the upper right corner. And don't forget to subscribe, because this video is almost done. Now, while these bosses are super easy to beat, they aren't completely bad. Nintendo could have saved them, but in the end, it just wasn't enough, and they certainly needed a bit more effort, which they never got, sadly enough. For example, adding some sort of charge attack, or some sort of power-up tied to him like we saw in Super Mario 3D World, where we saw a cat Goomba. Although that didn't exist back then, but they could have used another power-up like a fire flower. They could have done so much more with them. But sadly enough, they did nothing.